Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast, coming to you live from inside of a booster pack. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone, for another week of the podcast. We've got plenty ahead of you today. We've got some quick hitters. F1 is back this week. It's race week again. We've got some League of Legends, primarily the LCK finals that will semifinals and finals that we'll get into, and then possibly a little sprinkle of magic with that booster pack comment. But Justin, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, man. It's been a long wait until back to some Formula One action. Super excited for it. Looking forward to do the Zandvoort preview kind of later here in the episode. But why don't you start us off with your Rose, Thorn, and Seed here?
Yeah. So my Rose for this past week was, I guess, kind of what I was talking to you about right before we started, but I was excited that I got the new camera setup, even though I'm not sure how I feel about, I just did all my tech things. I was working on getting the audio thing set up. I think I almost have that nailed. New camera setup and everything, and so felt good to, do that. I did a deep clean of my computer, opened up everything, sprayed out all the nooks and crannies, vacuumed up all the dust and hairballs and everything, and so it was a very satisfying feeling to knock that out over the weekend.
Nice, very cool. Love a cleanup.
Yeah, it's I'm not the most proactive cleaner at all times, so actually getting myself to sit down and do that felt really good for me, just because it can be tough for me to be okay, gotta do this now and to go through all that. So definitely a nice little easy rose from the weekend. My thorn this week is a little bit of just today, but also in general with work lately. I've had just some frustrations along with my property manager at our corporate upper management and all. They make a lot of decisions, and then we have to, good or bad, we have to deal with the repercussions, but also from them. They're we did this thing and it messed up, but you're getting the blame for it because it's your property. And so that's pretty frustrating, especially with things like budget and whatnot, where our upper management makes decisions on where the money goes and all, and then they're where did all the money go to us? And we're you guys spent it on these things. I don't know what to tell you. So it's kind of a weird disconnect, or things that were supposed to be done. We sent all the information to order new pool furniture for the complex back in April before the pool opened. Me and my property manager went around, we figured out what we needed, we have this budget to buy it. Wouldn't you know, our corporate office just ordered the pool furniture for the summer a week ago, and we've just had to deal with the old stuff that's starting to kind of get worn out and everything, and residents being things don't look as nice, and we're well, we tried, but we sent them the order and they just didn't order it. So so things like that, frustrating. And it seems just a lot of times when I have my ducks in a row, today I was feeling very productive, knocking a lot of things off my checklist, feeling good, and then just all these little hiccups and wrenches were flying in from every which direction. And so I kind of just was pretty stressed out by the end of my day, the commute wasn't great. There were some maniacs on the roads. I said about 20 people sharing the same brain cell while they drove. So I I just had I've had a rough little week with some of that stuff with work, and then today was a tough one. So that was my main thorn, I guess, for this past week.
Damn, maniacs on the road, single brain cell living out here, shared amongst individuals nonetheless.
Oh yeah, this lady just drove up the shoulder next to me, trying to cut me off, and I just didn't let her because she should have merged like way back. Like she just decided not to merge, drive up the shoulder, and then was like, "You're the guy I'm gonna cut off." And I was like, "No, ma'am." Did not happen. So, but I'm like, what are you doing, people? Come on.
Sure.
But I digress. My seed for this week though is this weekend we have a wedding we're going to. Looking forward to that. But also on Friday, we're gonna get together for dinner with Colleen's cousins. And so the one cousin and his wife live down in Tennessee, and we had gone down to their wedding last year, but haven't really seen them since then. And then her other cousin, we just haven't seen in a bit because life's been busy. So it'll be cool to get together with them, hang out, have dinner, and have a chill Friday night.
Oh, that'll be a really good time. It's nice to see family members. After a long time in between, that'll be great.
Yeah, and they're good people, so I'm looking forward to like getting to know them more, especially the family down in Tennessee. I've only met them like twice, so
Gotcha.
It'll be nice to be able to just chat with them a little more and continue integrating myself into that world of Colleen. So, but that is my rose, thorn, and seed for this week.
It'd be funny if there you use the word infiltrate.
That could.
That's
could
just
work.
like brings a whole new meaning to that story.
Oh yeah,
just with one word change.
Very similar sounding word too. So yeah, but integrate, not infiltrate.
Infiltrating the family, gotcha.
Exactly.
Interesting stuff.
How's your week been going? Why don't you tell the people what's been going on for you?
Oh, it's been just a sleepy little town over here. So my rose here for the week we had on Saturday was Pioneer weekend at the local game store. So I went for 3 rounds of Swiss of Pioneer. Did pretty well actually. I really have no complaints. My first matchup was Mono Green Devotion. I think my deck, Blue Red Phoenix, is supposed to have a good matchup. Or not like a good matchup, but I think it can win just because it doesn't get better for Devotion post-sideboard. They don't employ... I'll say it like this. They employ a different kind of sideboard strategy that doesn't really affect what I'm doing. So I think maybe barring playing... maybe a little better. I don't know. Could have been the draws, but lost 0-2 to Devotion. Second matchup, I went to time for the first time. All my matches have never gone like the distance to end in a draw. So game 3 against Blue-White Control, we've both won a game, and I'm in a position where somebody else likely would have just scooped it up and said, hey man, you got a GG's. But I kept drawing threats. So I kept like playing them and like passing the turn and saying like, hey, deal with this or I'm back in the game. And I just kept drawing threat after threat. So I stayed in the game all the way down to turn. So once the time in the round is over, you get 50 minutes per round to play all 3 of your games if you need it. Get all the way there, so then once that time is over, then you just go to turns. Then there's 5 turns left. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if a player's not dead at the end of 5 turns, you call it a draw. So
the one
Blue-White Control
gets one more turn?
Yes, and I guess that has to do with the like play or draw scenario at the start of the game.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense then.
Right. So like somebody right at the start of the game, somebody's a turn ahead.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay,
Somebody always has to play first and put their resource down first.
that makes
Um,
sense then.
right. So blue white control, just a slugfest, right? Go to turns. I guess it would have been turn two where I draw an extra turn spell, and that was like just enough to like keep me alive until the end of the game. Well, not quite. I also had to like have another miracle top deck right at the end too, where so extra turn spell, play it, go then to turn three in that countdown, right? It's not like one whole thing. So we go to turn three, miracle draw, just miracle draw, pass back. The card that I drew gave me two blockers where like he would not have had a lethal attack, then my life total would have been above
Gotcha.
zero, so then we draw. So I play that. It's just a blowout. You can see on his face he's just like, oh, like he like the one thing he
E-
didn't think of, he couldn't even deal with it the way it's like played.
yeah.
Couldn't even deal with it. So wild. And I was like, I was excited just to draw, right? I was like,
Mm.
come on, let's go, right? He was not as excited as I
Well, I
was.
was gonna
But
say it sounds like he kind of got unlucky on just the fact that you kept getting lucky with your draws
yes.
and everything. So
Yes.
just
And
I
somebody
feel
else would
that.
have gave it to him forever ago, right? But I stayed in it because like I honestly I truly felt like I had a chance. I wasn't like roping the guy,
Like you
right? I
had
wasn't just like
a way back in if you pulled
yes.
the right things. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I
So,
mean, trust me, like I'll scoop if I know I'm beat.
oh
I
yeah,
did not feel like I was beat, so we go to turns for round two, and then round three was a mirror matchup where opponent did not have the like optimized deck list. He had a couple like budget options in there, and in that environment and scenario, it's going to be really tough to win
yeah.
games. So that was unfortunate, I think, for opponent, but win's a win. So we go a bunch of ones on the day. So that was just
Nice.
huge. The reason it's my rose is because I went without John, where John was kind of like my connection into it. He had other plans, but I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go anyway. So we made some friends, had
Nice.
had some laughs, and it was a good time. My thorn in my seat, I'll keep very short here now. So my thorn, just pretty sure we have a wasp nest somewhere, like on like the underhang or like maybe on the roof somewhere. They're like getting in little window crevices and stuff. We keep having to whap them. Nothing serious. They're just like hanging out on the windows, but just a problem to be solved. Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate, but a problem to
Well,
be solved.
my face is because that was another thing that I was dealing with this week at work. We had a massive, like, basketball sized wasp's nest up,
Brutal.
like, second floor level on the outside of the building, right above the entry, like the main entrance into the building. And
Damn.
so, like, I found it, or I saw it while I was like looking at other things around the property. The exterminator, when they came out and everything, they're like, oh, we're gonna have to shut down this entryway, so I'm having to like set up signs and cones and stuff, because god forbid, like, this guy is literally just thwapping this thing with a giant extendo like pole thing with a little
Nice.
like spatula looking thing on the end of it,
Sure.
just like trying to like dig it out and just whap it and just
Mm-hmm.
make hundreds of, like, it was probably hundreds of wasps, just the most
That's
angry
wild.
they've ever been. And so I was like sitting there. I wish I had gotten it on video. I like went over to like show the guy where it was without my phone, and then I was like, I'm just gonna stand back and check this out. But yeah, those things are mean. I don't like to mess with them. I've been stung by bees, wasps, yellow jackets, bit, whatever you call it. either way, it hurts. Not a good time.
Yeah, so definitely want to avoid all that, but you know what I'm talking about. It's unfortunate. And then my seed here for the week, been forward to it for a while, ever since they announced it. Disney Lorcana had its release on the 18th in local game stores, and I think there's like another release on the first of September. But we got some hands on this weekend with John, buddy from the play group. He picked up a couple of the starter decks, so being able to play and just like test out the game mechanics was very fun. That's where the
Nice.
the booster pack intro came from, because we were just talking about Lorcana and just like another trading card game. But interestingly, the mechanics are pretty fun, and I think it'll be a fun game to at least dabble in and just see what goes on with it. But yeah, Disney Lorcana, a new trading card game that I'm pretty excited about and looking to like get more into and learn a little bit more about.
Nice. I dig that. That's cool.
Yippers.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. But that's my rose, thorn, and seed here. Go ahead.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know how the game works out, and I'll
For
have to
sure.
look it up and see a little bit more because I have not heard of this. So I'll have to look at it and try and figure out a little bit, so I'm more knowledgeable in the know.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'll show you some resources and you can learn all about it. Like the art is phenomenal. I know some of the they have like some extended art and like foil treatments that are like beautiful. So from like an art perspective, really nice. Some of the mechanics work well. Similar mechanics to Magic, so there's like a little bit of familiarity there. But yeah, overall, I think it'll be pretty fun, pretty fun game to play. There's like some very interesting cards, like thinking about them from like a Magic perspective. There is some wild cards in the first set that it's just like, what? These are just like legal to play. You can just play these cards. There's some fun stuff. So
Nice.
yeah, I think it'll be a good game. But I don't believe Disney card games is what the people are here for. Let's talk about the Netherlands Grand Prix. Unless we have some quick hitters.
Just a few first, but we'll move relatively quick. So I talked about Felipe Massa and his legal battle after losing the 2008 World Championship and trying to kind of get that championship back through the legal processes at this point in time. And so he has apparently kind of kind of continued the ball rolling and everything, and has now sent a letter to the FIA and Formula One about the impending like suit and everything. But something that I found kind of it's kind of funny, but like sucks for Felipe Massa. But Bernie Ecclestone, who was the Formula One, like I think he was the Formula One president or something at this point in time, who apparently is the person who had said that he knew that things were like that there was shenanigans going on and all, is now 92 years old and was asked about like this situation, and he was like, I don't remember. So he's just like, I'm 92 years old. I literally don't remember if I ever said what he's claiming I said. So yeah, so it
gets worse for Felipe.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird, continued weird situation and everything with him looking to overturn the results of that. And it's all Fernando Alonso's fault. So,
what if good guy Lewis Hamilton just comes out and says like, "Yeah, man, here you can have it."
Doubt it. then he'll be struggling to get back to 7.
Yeah, damn, what a commotion that would cause.
That would cause quite the stir. But that was just one note that is gonna kind of start ramping up, it sounds like, with the that legal battle. Another kind of law and in that realm thing was I had sent you the clip of Max driving his Aston Martin Valkyrie in Monaco. And all, which I was just like, yo, this car is crazy, looks awesome. Just this $3 million like hypercar going around. But very quickly after that, this big like stir came up online about how, I guess in Monaco, there's a video that Max posted of him driving, that was taken of him driving the car. He's wearing like noise canceling headphones because apparently the engine is so loud that it can cause like hearing issues from being like right in the car there with it for extended periods of time.
Wow.
So he's doing that, and apparently on the speedometer you could see that he was speeding, and so there's all these people online that are like, Max is gonna be arrested and yada 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 because Monaco has this special forces thing that specifically tracks down like people who put videos online of themselves like breaking the law driving and like whatever. And so they're like, Max is going to be the first person to win the championship from jail and all this nonsense. But it was kind of like funny to me because they're like, oh my God, he was going 124 kilometers per hour in a 90 kilometer per hour zone. And I'm like, I did the math and I'm like, he was going 77 in a 56 mile per hour speed. Like, yeah, you're 21 over, definitely a speeding ticket, but like jail time, like this is a little bit just over the top with everyone's reaction. I'm like, 77 in a 56 is like not that crazy. 77 in a 30 would be like, yeah, lock that person up. But I just found that kind of amusing.
I'm struggling to see like the problem or the surprise here. Like, race car driver drives fast in fast car.
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa.
Just super mind-boggling, and
yeah,
I just never would have expected it from him.
Where was he? In the tunnel?
No, you're just driving around. I'm not sure. You can't really tell where it is in the video because it's like in the cockpit of the car, which is pretty tight, so you don't get a lot of the outside view.
Gotcha. You laugh and say no, but like that'd be like a good spot to open it up.
I guess so.
I mean, I'm no like Monaco expert. That's just like one straightaway that comes to mind, and you're like,
I just think of that area because you're coming right down into the pool and casino and everything. Like, I feel like that would probably be a little too mobbed to like open it up ever when it's not like a race weekend.
Well, that's like. But that's kind of my thing is like anywhere seems tight and like it would just have mad traffic. Like, yeah, I mean, he gets it up to 77. Let him, dude. Who cares?
That's fair. But it's crazy. Like the setup just to drive this car is wild. Like the video, the inside the steering wheel is like looks pretty much like an F1 steering wheel minus all the knobs and buttons and everything. He's got the noise canceling headphones on. The seatbelt is like a strap across like whole thing. So pretty wild car.
Bro, I'll tell you the one thing I noticed. It wasn't the car. It was dude's arms. His arms are huge. Like you don't see him in cutoffs a lot, unless you're like on his like social media or whatever. I don't know,
right.
But like on a race weekend, you just see him in like full, neck to feet, just Red Bull stuff. Dude, that was the first thing I noticed about the video. I was like, oh my God, this guy is huge.
And it's funny, actually, looking at him now compared to... I saw a couple of pictures of him, like, from early years in F1 and everything on, like, the summer breaks, and he was so skinny and lanky and like spindly. And now he like has filled out. It's yeah, it's pretty funny looking back. But he is I think a lot of the F1 drivers like have that that sleeper build with the muscles. You just can't tell with the full race suit on, like you said. I think the only one we really ever get to know that he has that dad bod physique is Alonso, because he's always running around with his race suit like off the top and just hanging down there. The classic Alonso look. But then my next quick hitter, really not anything newsworthy, but I found it just amusing. I started getting Hugo Boss ads on my Twitter. So
of course.
I didn't even think that I had like typed it in anywhere maybe, or it just like seen some tweets and looked at stuff, and all of a sudden I'm getting Hugo Boss ads on my Twitter, which is I just found that kind of funny.
Yeah, Google must have heard that 15-minute chunk that we did on it.
Yeah, they're using the podcast to fill their databases. But leading into the last quick hitter of the day, leading into the Dutch Grand Prix, Alfa Romeo is going to be running a special livery for the Dutch Grand Prix, and it's going to be a tribute to a art car design that was made by an artist like in partnership with Alfa Romeo. So this artist like designed a car livery and all, and so now they're using at least something similar, or throwing that on the car during the Dutch Grand Prix.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's pretty sweet looking.
Now, do we have the name of the artist?
Boogie, Boogie. I initially, when I saw it, thought that it was another video game like sponsorship partner thing.
Gotcha.
Because in my mind, I was like, oh, that looks kind of like camouflagey, like it would be something related to a gamer who's playing like, I don't know, like Call of Duty or something like that. But no, just an artist.
You're the target demographic for this guy's art?
Apparently, well, I'm also only seeing it on this car on a tiny image, and I'm like, oh, that looks good. And as I zoom in, it looks like it's not quite what I thought it was, but
gotcha.
It still looks pretty sweet. It's like mishmash of red and black, so it's like all these red bubble letters that are like, and numbers that are all like scattered across themselves and everything over top of a black background is what it looks like. So pretty sweet looking livery for the Dutch Grand Prix.
Nice.
But yeah, we have that coming up this weekend, so we can take a look at the preview for the race this weekend at Zandvoort. To start off, we can look last year. Very interesting race. We had a lot of kind of wonkiness throughout, from Sainz and Hamilton having contact at the start of the race. Russell's just kind of cruising, driving a nice clean race. Pit stop incidents where Sainz doesn't have one of his tires out. The wheel gun gets run over by Checo as he's leaving his pit box. And so all these little just bizarre snafus. We had the whole Sonoda incident where he thought his tire wasn't fully on and then pulled over, undid his seatbelt, drove back in. They rebuckled him, sent him back out. Just all this weirdness with him. I believe that's the incident. I know it was. Yeah, and so I'm like, just a very bizarre race. The virtual safety car there, Valtteri's car dies and they get the full safety car. Lewis was gonna, I don't know if he was gonna win. Everyone was saying he was odds on to win the race, but the safety car.
Yeah, based on the safety car, I don't know about that because that was, and I mean, whatever, it already happened. It was last year, but he did the restart on mediums and Max was on soft tires. So it was just like,
Everyone
I
was
don't
on
know.
soft. Yeah.
Right. Like even his teammate George, like when they were pulling in, made the call to get on the soft tires. So yeah, tough time for Mercedes in that race specifically last year.
Yeah, and whether or not I think there was still time that Max could have probably hunted down Lewis and gotten the win anyway, but the safety car, Lewis being on medium tires, was just uh, kind of signed, sealed, delivered for
Hmm.
Max. And then of course we had George Russell and Charles Leclerc wrapping out the podium there. So I think we will probably see a pretty different podium this year with maybe the first one still remaining the same with Max up there, but I'm just excited to see what the teams look like coming off the summer break. We've talked about a number of teams who've been looking at bringing more upgrades. Aston Martin feeling like they're going to be coming into a more competitive spot. McLaren looking really good. So there's going to be a lot of competition, I think, in that behind Red Bull pack there.
Yeah, between the teams that are, kind of battling for points at the top or competing for alternate podium positions, like the Ferraris, Mercedes, McLaren now in the last couple races. Say last couple weeks, but last couple races. And then the Aston Martins, obviously. But Aston Martin kind of like in a little bit of a little bit of a downturn. They haven't really been showing up that well. So hopefully they'll be ready to rock and roll at the start of the second half of the season. Yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
a mouthful. I'm glad I paused there.
No, you made it happen, but yeah, that is a mouthful. But I think they just based on what they were talking about in some interviews and everything during the break that they're planning to bring some of those upgrades. They seem to have figured out what the issue was that has been slowing them down. I expect them to maybe not immediately, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks bounce back. And be competitive again, kind of up towards the top where they were.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough to hear the confidence from Fernando, see the, you know, current form that I think he's in right now, but then also the with Lance Stroll, it's tough to see if Lance is underperforming to the car, if Fernando's overperforming a little bit. I feel like the average of that car is somewhere in between those two, and they're each pulling at other sides of the spectrum. Is kind of what it feels like. So it's tough to hear the confidence from Fernando kind of at the sharp end of the points winning positions where Lance hasn't been able to really deliver, and you just hope to see that continue. Because remember, there was a time where he said, rest of the year, nothing but podiums, it's us. So you just kind of wonder where that went, and you
Yeah.
hope to see Aston Martin kind of reinvigorate and put themselves back in those positions because they looked really good when they were, battling at the front there.
Yeah, and they have a strong car. It's they seem to just have kind of stagnated a little bit with their progress where other teams
Hmm.
have just gradually been making improvements. So yeah, I'm definitely looking to see how they do. But it should be a good race. I'm just excited to have F1 back. Zandvoort's a very like just weird track in general with the number of hairpins and turnbacks and everything in the circuit. So it's always interesting to see with all the different passing opportunities and areas that we'll get to see drivers make their way throughout the weekend.
When I was watching back through a couple of the different race starts, like 20, 22, 21, 20, there were some conversations about like the inside versus the outside start, like maybe second position in on this track isn't actually so bad, because you do have turn one going into a hairpin. Couple of starts have been, pretty interesting in that regard. So I'm excited to see what happens this year. The thing that I'm looking forward to, I think my favorite part of the track is the banked turn coming into the final straight. Like that is just so fun to see cars like effectively like wall riding and then coming
It's
back
so
down
steep.
on. Yeah, very steep. And then
It's
like
crazy.
shifting back down onto level ground. I think the effect is just so cool when you're able to look at it from down the straight. It really is just a dynamic way to watch a race car go. And for such a simple thing, it does add quite a bit of excitement there for the race. So yeah, I would definitely agree. I think Zandvoort is quite the exciting race. There's a bunch of straights and what feel like pretty good overtaking opportunities. I'll admit I've probably struggled in the past to understand like what makes a good overtaking track, which tracks are the good overtaking tracks, other than just like the easy call outs. But this seems with the straights and based on some of the other years, good amount of overtaking can be done here. I think with the setup that they have currently. So yeah, I think we're looking forward to a good race here.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things for circuits that are, I guess, have more passing opportunities, the real key that I've noticed is purely just like space to some extent at the turns, like it, because here, like one of the big reasons that it seems to be a track or a circuit that you can have lots of passing opportunities is there's a good number of turns that have like a wide amount of space where, or like relatively, at least in a two car situation, where you can take multiple lines through the turn pretty easily. And so you have the opportunity to try and be on the outside and then cut back on the inside and whatnot throughout, but also the areas of the circuit where you can be on the outside for one turn and then have the inside line for another turn. Gives the opportunity that if you can send it kind of on the outside into the first first turn of that section, then you can have the like be even on the inside line going into the next turn. So it's some of those things that I feel like help with it, but in terms of like actual structure and speeds and breaking points, that's beyond me. But those are the two things I would say I feel like I've noticed from watching in terms of that.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense to me, and yeah, we see it as a quite a spacious track in that regard. But yeah, that has to be my favorite element of the track. And I think the racing will be quite good if we're able to overtake well.
Yeah, and I expect it to be. I mean, I feel like it's just one of those circuits that has a lot of overtakes historically, and so with the kind of closeness and competition between a number of the teams right now, I think it will be a really fun race. We'll have the Orange Army out there to be ready to
For sure.
storm the track if Max
With their contraband
goes and,
flares.
yeah, and storm out there if Max wins and ties Seb Vettel's record, which is it's funny. I was like looking up what circuits Seb had won the 9 races in a row at.
Gotcha.
And came across a podcast for WTF1 from 2021 that's titled "The Sebastian Vettel Record No F1 Driver Will Ever Beat," and it's just funny. Like, this is just 2 years ago that this was being talked about as one of those, similar to like almost a Wayne Gretzky record, where Wayne Gretzky's like points total will never be surpassed because he has like more assists than anyone else has points in the history of hockey or something like that. And so when you add his goals on, it's just like obscene. So this record that Max is chasing here for the 9th win in a row to tie it is kind of one of those things that once it was set by Seb, people were like, "Yep, that's never going to happen again." So it's kind of crazy to think that we may be watching a potentially like extremely historical run. I didn't realize that this record was on that kind of level in terms of race wins in a row, that people were looking at it that way, and so it's just quite impressive. And so I'm just excited for the race, excited for racing, excited to see how things shake out.
Is that part of... So did we find out that the Netherlands was part of that stretch of races?
Yes. So it was from...
You had me in suspense.
Sorry, I skipped over that because when I was searching it, I got sidetracked. But it was the stretch of races from Belgium to Brazil in 2013. So
okay.
That included the Netherlands, I believe, as well.
Damn, that's gonna be funny into the future when there's a couple of drivers that have like done this, when it's like Seb, Max, and then like Piastri eventually like puts himself in that position. Then it's gonna be a question of like strength of schedule. Then we're gonna be like, yeah, but who did it on like harder tracks? You know what I mean? I think that's gonna be funny, where like truly just pulling hairs about this like extraordinary feat that does not come around every year. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually, I just double checked it. I was thinking, like last race was the Belgian Grand Prix, so the Dutch Grand Prix was probably right. So the Zandvoort
it's probably shifted so much.
It was not on the calendar back in 2013. So it was
Gotcha.
Seb had Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, then Monza, Singapore, Korean International Circuit, Suzuka, the Bood International Circuit in India, Yas Marina, Circuit of the Americas, and then Interlagos. So
gotcha.
Yeah, so some very very good circuits in just the grand scheme of F1, and also interesting that they had the race in Korea and India in there as well, which are...
Yeah, I was going to say, that's 2 tracks that I've never seen.
Yeah, I haven't either. So very very cool, and just a neat thing if we're there to see history. That's just a pretty cool situation. You never know when that kind of thing's gonna happen. So
he'll be able to tie it if he wins this weekend.
Correct.
That's super cool. Yeah, I think one of the other storylines that I'd be paying attention to is the battle between Lewis and Alonso. Like, if you look at where they are in the driver standings, they're so close together in points that if you ignore first, that could be very exciting. Like weekend or like race in and race out, just based on, I think, how competitive those drivers are with one another, and then also like how close their teams have been able to put them in like points winning positions. Because obviously the drivers' championship points are also a reflection of how the team is doing as a whole, right?
Yeah,
To some degree.
definitely.
So yeah, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to is Lewis versus Fernando.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be exciting for the second half, and even throwing Checo in there, with Checo not looking as dominant in the Red Bull as Max is, at least. 40 points is a DNF from being like in kind of shooting or spitting distance for Alonso and Lewis to be there. I mean, all it takes is him, yeah, like not finishing one race and he could only be 22, like less than a race worth of points ahead of both of them. So, and the other thing is, I didn't even think about this. Is this weekend a sprint race? No. Okay.
I'm unsure, but I doubt it.
Okay, I had to look because for some reason I was like, oh, what if this weekend even has more points from the sprint race? But no sprint race this weekend. So that crisis averted.
Crisis averted in that regard. But yeah, if you factor in how Sergio Perez is doing, they're like the thought creeps in your mind that like it's a possibility that advantage slips, right? Like that's based on other things we've seen this year. Like that's where you're coming from.
Exactly. It's not that I expect it to, but just the potential is kind of there. And as we said with this circuit, last year we had a lot of little shenanigans, some bumping and nudging of shoulders throughout the race. So all it takes is just one unlucky moment for Checo, and if Lewis and Alonso just keep up their consistency and performance and everything, the two of them plus Max are still, I believe, the only drivers to have 100% completion of laps at this point in the year, with no DNFs or anything. So between the three of them, that is I mean, they've shown that kind of consistency. So you just never know what could happen there. And then even looking just behind them, Leclerc and George Russell are currently tied for the driver's standings in 5th and 6th at 99 points. So that's a pretty tight battle as well. And as we continue to move along through these races, it will, I'm sure we'll start looking at things similar to last year with Checo and Leclerc for second in the Drivers' Championship, where it came down to even Max not giving up a position to Checo for Checo to end up in second in the driver's standings at the end, or in third in the driver's standings behind Leclerc at the end of it. So we'll be definitely keeping an eye on these battles as we kind of get towards the end of the season, as we did last year.
Yeah, because we'd be fools to put on any type of airs that like there was competition for the front. So just trying to find the other storylines that are like exciting, fun things to watch, the things you're looking forward to, the things that are worthwhile to tune into at the races, and I think these are a bunch of those points. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that we left out. Oscar Piastri, the rise of McLaren with him and Lando Norris. Like, I think that's super exciting too. The fact that Alpine, right as everybody wanted to I was ready to like straight up be calling them clowns on the pod, and then they win, like get on the podium of a sprint race and like follow it up and start to change their fortune a little bit. I think there's some good things to look forward to at the second half here.
Yeah, there's I mean, and just racing in general, I'm excited for it to be back.
For
but
sure.
yeah, a lot of good storylines to to follow. I did have one quick hitter that just came back to me as I was like thinking through the grid and anything else. But I just want to give a shout out to Valtteri Bottas, who dressed as Duffman from The Simpsons and entered a biking race over the summer F1 break. It was like a hill climbing competition out in Colorado via bicycle, which I believe he won. So it was funny. He's wearing this like suit and hat and everything, and just crushed out this uphill bike race and everything. Sick. But yeah, sorry, that was one of the quick hitters that slipped through. I like saved it somewhere, and I couldn't find the thing, whether it was like TikTok or Twitter or Instagram. I couldn't find the save. But yeah, pop back to mind before we wrapped up the F1 segment here.
You got to upgrade your gray matter, dude.
I know. I need all of my saved things to just conglomerate into one space on their own without me having to go through and do that, because I miss things like Valtteri winning uphill bike races, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I remember hearing about a lot of alternate hobbies and stuff, and I believe one of the Drive to Survive features on Valtteri was his love of, or his new love of biking, cycling.
And the only thing I remember of Valtteri from Drive to Survive is the sauna and him just being out there in the buff,
naked with his boys,
just a very like, you're just like casually watching through and everything, and you're just like, oh, Valtteri naked from behind, okay, and then you're like back to watching Drive to Survive, and it's like just the little it's like back in the day when movies had to be spliced together for the reels and everything, and people would throw
and they would just be like hard cuts.
Yeah, just like that little like hard cut, but sometimes I guess people would throw in like random little like pictures at that cut point and everything, and whether it was
like little one frame,
just like, one frame, like whether it's something inappropriate or just like random little things. It's like an easy place to just splice in that like little blip.
Damn, I wonder how many just went the route of splicing in like a photo of like popcorn or just like a candy bar or something.
Probably so then, very few.
I mean, bro, that would be genius. You could just rake in like 35% more on every movie you show, because people would just like, they would see the message. Yeah, exactly. They'd just be like, damn, I want a candy bar right now. And like right at that point, you would just see mad people just get up and be like, yeah, I'll take a candy bar, I guess. And like they don't even know why they're doing it. They're like, I don't even like candy. They're like, I'll take 2, please.
See, I think the only reason that it doesn't work is because it's young kids and like high schoolers who are doing that. They don't care about how much Mr. Owner of the movie theater makes and everything. They're I would imagine just splicing things to mess with people.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. That makes sense.
But yeah, wrapping up the F1 chit chat, we had some League of Legends matchups going on this past week. Some big matches.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you really quick, because I didn't really understand. So, staying in the motorsport vein, so Mark Saracen is going to leave Chip Ganassi Racing, but a bunch of the questions were for, like, what happens to Grosjean now? What would happen to Grosjean? Like, why does that matter? And this was like a genuine question.
Who is leaving Chip Ganassi?
Marcus Ericsson.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Let's see.
Am I dropping
So,
news on you just live on the pod?
yeah, I didn't see this today. So,
That's sick.
okay. So he signs with Andretti.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha.
And they're saying there's like implications for Grosjean. It's like, well, why?
I think most likely the reason that would just come up in general is that Grosjean drives for Andretti. So maybe they're looking at it and going, is like Andretti allowed to have this many like drivers? But right now they have, I mean, really just like three. They already have three drivers. They have or four. Like I don't think that there is a. I'd have to research, but I don't think there's a cap on like how many drivers the teams have necessarily.
Well,
'Cause
that's
I'm
what I thought. I
seeing,
remember we had talked about that. It was either
yeah,
like
because
last episode or the one before.
yeah, they have Kyle Kirkwood, Colton Herta, Roman Grosjean, and then they also have Marco Andretti. So I don't think that would necessarily affect Grosjean's like position there. I don't think his like contract would be up or anything. I guess yeah, so I guess he's on the last year of his contract with Andretti, so maybe people are thinking, oh, is there still a spot for him there with the team? But I don't imagine that would cause any issues.
Sure. Now, just stay on that for a second. Do you believe that Grosjean's performed like well enough to keep a seat in IndyCar?
Oh, to keep a seat in IndyCar, absolutely.
Gotcha.
I don't think that is a an issue at all. Really, I think that if he doesn't end up continuing with Andretti, I think there's plenty of other teams that he could join, and I think his
Sure.
prowess on street circuits in particular, he is consistently competitive. Like in a year where Chip Ganassi Racing is like dominating their constructor standings and everything, it's Chip Ganassi Racing in 1, 2, 6. So 3 of the top 6 are Chip Ganassi. There's 2 Team Penske and an Arrow McLaren in there.
Gotcha.
So even looking at that, like Grosjean on those street circuits is always in like that top 10 just automatically off qualifying, and then he's led laps in a number of races, whether that's due to strategy and whatnot. Some cases yes, and in some cases just on merit. And there's so many drivers that have just not even led a single lap this season that I feel like it would be tough to like say this guy who's putting him in position to even lead laps in a car that is like being beat out by both Chip Ganassi, Arrow McLaren, and Team Penske. Like there are 3
Yeah.
teams that are putting better cars out there than Andretti at the moment, and I think that is Grosjean's performance is enough to show that he deserves to be in IndyCar. I think also he just he has plenty of room to grow in regard to like oval track racing and all. And I think that's something that he just can still continue to get better at. I don't think there's like a cap on that when he's only been doing oval track races now for this is I guess his
I think it was
second
only
or
yeah. I think it was
first
only
year or
this
second year.
year. this year last. Yeah.
Yeah. So even in terms of that, I just feel like he's performed well enough to stay in IndyCar. I guess it would depend on contracts and whatnot, and maybe the concern with these teams is like there's only so much budget to go around, where you can only maybe field so many drivers, but I feel like he should be in a pretty safe spot.
Yeah, and that was kind of my sense from just like having a highlights understanding of the IndyCar season this year. But yeah, that was just something that came up like literally a couple hours before we started recording, so I wanted to ask you about it. But yeah, that's some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I missed that. I just got a little too caught up. I didn't get to check Twitter at the end of my day, man.
Sure, man, I had it on the pulse.
I know you're breaking big news to me.
Well, and then, bro, I got some more big news for you. We can kind of turn our attention. We were about to enter into the League of Legends section of the pod. But bro, I gotta hit you with something, man. Have you ever heard of Gamers 8 GG?
Can't say I have.
All right, so I'm gonna lay something on you. So Gamers 8 GG is to Saudi Arabia is what Tencent is to China.
So Gamers 8 GG, what game did they create?
They didn't. Well,
or what game do they like own?
I don't think they own any game. They're maybe that was a terrible setup. Okay,
I'm just thinking of like the relationship of like Tencent owns Riot at this point. Like Tencent bought Riot, and so Tencent is a Chinese company that owns like that's where my brain went with it in my logic.
Oh no, you're right. Okay, yeah. So I guess Gamers 8 GG they don't own a game in that way. So they're just a tournament organizer. I guess I should have said like ESL or like an IEM or something like this.
Because I think I may have seen something about. I saw something where there was a team of maybe it was Counter-Strike players or something that were all dressed up in the typical Saudi Arabian like clothing with the white robe and the headdress and everything. I apologize if that is not. I don't know what any of it's called. So. I hope that was not offensive, but yeah, I saw something about that, and there was this whole like stir about players like going and kind of being pushed to dress in a certain way to play in these tournaments in Saudi Arabia and whatnot. But it sounds like you have a little more background on it than I do. I just saw a brief
and maybe not much, but me and Sarah were looking like literally we just turned on Twitch to find a Hunt Showdown stream, and we see like in the description I think it said like heroic versus like G2 or something, and I'm like, wait, what? So you click it's a full-on CS:GO tournament in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, put on by like this new up and coming esports like tournament organizer production. I get the term I'm looking for is like broadcasting company basically that's putting on this like $1 million CS:GO tournament. Like the prize pool was $1 million. First place got like 450 grand or something with like the like top teams. I'm talking top teams. It was FaZe, Heroic, ENCE, G2, Vitality. Like literally name any team you want. All the talent was there. Like all the casters that you know from ESL and everything. They were all there just like putting on this massive show. Interestingly enough, like the venue was kind of tiny, like, you know, the crowd wasn't massive or anything, but it like the production value was very high. You could tell however they got the teams there, it was probably all like invitation basis or whatever. But dude, it was like a premier CS:GO tournament. It was like kind of sick. Like the stage and everything.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Neither have I.
And I feel like I didn't see hardly anything about it either. I normally see like tweets and different things when like IEMs are going on. Like I follow enough esports people that I usually see stuff, and I don't remember. But it's also just like a wild like the just the if you're looking at just purely the financials of things like this, it's kind of mind-boggling the amount of just wealth that is in Saudi Arabia. I mean, like,
Yeah.
so and
Why do you think I'm bringing it up?
well, to bring this around, like obviously Saudi Arabia started the Live Golf series that took a bunch of the professional golfers, Phil Mickelson and a number of those other guys, paid them just boatloads of money to come over. Like I think Phil got 10 million or something, probably more, just to like sign to play for a year. Like Dustin Johnson, a number of these golfers. Then recently, a Saudi Arabia soccer team had offered a 1 year, $776 million contract to Mbappe, who is one of the best soccer player, football players at this point in Europe or in the world, really.
Sure.
And so, like, the amount of money that's just like floating around there to just be like spent, like a $1 million prize pool for that, is wild for just a random little CS:GO tournament. Like, just, I mean, that's the prize pool for the League of Legends World Championship. I think still probably is $1 million, and they're just like, oh yeah, like new CS:GO tournament. Let's just throw a $1 million little prize pot at the end of this.
Well, I think that's what's like so exciting about it is there is now this just, and I'm sure if you've been paying attention, you realize like it was going this way with what you're alluding to is like them spending money in a whole bunch of different entertainment industries and like trying to draw talent to them.
I didn't even mention they tried to buy Formula One from Liberty Media Group. Like,
Yeah.
there was that offer out to
Yeah.
buy Formula One too. So
When was
yeah.
that? Last year in 2021?
I think it was between. It was either between 2021 and 2022, or it was like last year.
Gotcha.
During the break where there was this big offer out. So it's just it's interesting, like, because there's so many components to it. There's the financial aspect, which is massive, but you also have to, of course, consider like the human rights and like the other things that are kind of like this. The biggest concern with like Saudi Arabia for a lot of the world is a lot of like more political and cultural concerns and everything.
Right.
So it's
Terms like esports washing begin to come up.
well, just in like the scheme of this, like I get kind of why they're spending so much money towards these things, because it's you're having to pull people past these other political, really more issues and everything. So it's very like interesting and kind of odd dynamic where, like, I mean, I understand why these teams are like, yeah, we'll go play a tournament in Saudi Arabia and everything if the prize pool is the biggest prize pool that we see all year. Like, why not? Absolutely. I get it.
Yeah. And it does raise those interesting questions, and even from like an audience member's perspective, I mean, I tuned in. You know what I mean? I was there for the semis and the final. Like it was quite exciting, and maybe some of those things were in the back of my mind, but overall it's kind of like, well, is there like is there something to like we can all connect over Counter-Strike regardless of like where we come from? Do we have to, exclude who are just like regular citizens overall, from this thing? And should we like shun, what
I
am I
get
trying to
what you
say?
mean. Like should people who are not doing the concerning things be deprived of being a part of this like global
Right.
connection with other people and
And
everything?
ultimately,
Like,
like CS:GO, just like anything, it brings joy to people. So
yeah, I can understand I can understand that side of it. I think it's more um, like, do I think that the random person that was in the crowd watching that is like out there doing anything like horrible? Probably not. Um,
mhm,
but at the same time, I guess it's like the optics of like the guilt by association thing, basically, of
sure,
like
sure,
where you're so I think that looking at it the way that you are is like a really like nice perspective to have. Like, I think like it's refreshing like for people to say, hey, like there's all this bad going on everywhere, like we
hmm
can come together over this thing that we all enjoy, and everything. But it can be tough to overlook all of the um, other like things that are like optics and things that are involved. So I think that is the um, I wish that it would be that easy to look at things like that and just like no, these are the people who are doing bad things. These people are good. They should just be able to enjoy life just like everyone else, kind of thing.
sure.
Enjoy CS:GO gaming and all, and have those connections. So yeah, it's a interesting situation, or an interesting like thing um, for the event and everything. So
Well, yeah, because there are like this is why I'm bringing it up, because there are like these like sentiments like politically about them, but at the same time here they are like putting on just as good a show as they did in Cologne, just like smaller audience kind of thing.
yeah.
It's just surprising how times evolve, what new like kind of new parties come into the game, and kind of what baggage comes along with that. I mean, you could have the same conversations about like China and League of
Oh,
Legends and like
absolutely.
any of this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's all
Oh,
it's
they're
all
like,
horrible.
yeah. I mean, I people could say the same thing about the U.S. for a lot of things too. There's
100%. Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
like so I definitely get it. It's a yeah, I think it's like a tough thing to like think through and kind of break apart or break down the different components of it as like a normal person like you or I who are
Sure.
not involved. Just similar to the people who are just watching the CS:GO tournament and everything. Like you're just living your life, trying
Mhm.
to do right by people and enjoy your life and everything. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things it's tough because things are attributed and the associations and everything when um, there are plenty of normal everyday people who are just like
Mhm.
trying to have fun and want to have a CS:GO tournament that they can go to live and see, or have a similar to like when we see the F1 Grand Prix in the US, where we're like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, like home races for us kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's like
exactly.
a cool thing to have. So
Well, and one of the other cool things that is going to be interesting, because they're not only trying to do the tournaments, but this company Gamers 8 is being quite what's the word? Not risky, but like they're like a large undertaking. So they're putting a whole bunch of organizations and games into like a year-long circuit where
Okay.
whenever a team wins a event, like a Gamers 8 sanctioned event in any of their games, you get put on the leaderboard as your like organization. So like G2, the whole esports organization, whenever they play a Gamers 8 event, if you place like in the top 8 or whatever, you get, your points get put up on the leaderboard in the quest to find like who's the best esports club, who's the
Okay.
best gaming club just in general, like who's putting up results across games. And this to me is like fascinating. Obviously, you have the flaw here of like, okay, well, how do you rate what games are the most important? Like,
Or
what's on the pulse of like maximum competitiveness? Interestingly, League of Legends is not in their docket of games. It's like Rainbow Six Siege, Dota,
okay.
Counter Strike, a couple of these. I mean, some like big good games, obviously. But yeah, massive undertaking to try and like weigh all of these results into like a large pool of Gamers 8 events.
And also just in terms of not a lot of esports organizations don't have teams in every game, so
Right.
it's like I understand the idea behind it, but at the same
Same.
time, I feel like you can't really compare it side by side. It's not like so okay, like the Premier League, for instance, like has all of the football teams and everything that are playing each other they're all English football teams and everything. And
The
then
Bundesliga.
that's the German one. And so, like, but in those leagues, there are almost, I would say, I'm 99% sure there's like Chelsea, the men's football team, and then there's
Hmm.
like Chelsea, the women's football team. And so like all of these organizations have like a both a men's and women's team,
Hmm.
whereas like in the US oftentimes you have like team like you don't have a WNBA team everywhere there's an NBA team in the US. So you
Sure.
can't say that the Philadelphia 76ers organization is the best organization because the Sixers had this result and the women's Sixers had this result kind of thing. Where
Right.
in like other areas you could say, oh, this is like English Premier League. Oh, the Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, Manchester United, whoever is the best overall club because their men's team result and their women's team result both are the highest average result. I think it's like tougher in these esports where, and in a lot of times, like Dota, CSGO, very, very different games. It wouldn't be shocking for a team on either of those esports to like not necessarily field a team in the other esport.
Right. Right.
So it's a little tougher of a comparison, I feel like, in that situation, unless the circuit is only comprised of like organizations that have teams in all of those realms.
It may be that I'm not sure what all the fine details are, but
It is
it is,
interesting, though.
yeah, definitely an interesting concept and fun to see money being thrown at esports from a different angle and a different way, regardless of the party, because nobody is perfect. It was just like really crazy to like I've had my eye on the yearly schedule like for a while for Valorant, CS:GO, and League of Legends, and for this to just like pop up off the radar, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then you're
Yeah.
treated to like some great CS:GO games because like it was the top 12 teams in the world, like everybody was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was sick. Vitality beats Ents in the final 2-1. Big comeback hours in Vitality fashion. It was actually kind of sick to watch live.
Nice. So yeah, it sounds like a good tournament. I mean, lots of good teams and everything there.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have to dabble and see, look back and all, because I know obviously we talked about Ents recently. Where was it Ents and who was the other team in the last CS:GO?
Ents versus G2 at
It
IM
was
Cologne.
G2. Okay. I couldn't quite remember. I remembered Loud was in that mix somewhere too, and or at least in the tournament, and I was having trouble placing where things were.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But yeah, moving into the League of Legends section
Let's do
of
it.
the episode. So briefly, I just wanted to touch on the LCS. We've gotten a couple of our LCS teams for Worlds in the finals. Cloud9 versus NRG, who just as a cool note, they obviously just switched from CLG to NRG this split in terms of the organization. A number of players on the squad who have had flashes of good performances and then kind of got almost like relegated to this squad of CLG, coming back to make a really nice run to the finals after having lost 3-0 to Cloud9 in the upper bracket semifinals. They go down, and so some of these players, FBI, Contracts, Dokla, all players who have had like moments in the LCS but had kind of been relegated as like, oh, they're past their peak, a little bit past their prime, and they came into this matchup after a 3-2 lower bracket finals against Team Liquid to rematch Cloud9, and they came out strong, played a really good series, and end up getting the LCS Summer Split Championship there. So very, very cool for NRG.
Well, and you love to see that, especially in regards to the rematch, like just getting 3-0'd in the upper bracket finals, having to then fight for your life against Team Liquid in that regard. That's just a brutal kind of set of circumstances. So to bounce back from that, go 3-1 is yeah, super. I would say super resilient of them to not get broken down in the down the in the lower bracket. And looking at some of the picks and bans like in the series, I think Energy has their finger on the pulse of kind of what's good, what's working. The Palafox solution is a bit surprising in that regard, but
Yeah, but with this, like, there was all this conversation about in like going into game 2 from the broadcast. They're like, oh, like Dokla's not a Jax player, we never see him play Jax, I don't know how he's gonna do on this pick and everything, and he played it super well in game 2. And then like from being a Cloud9 fan perspective, I was just disappointed with Cloud9's like drafting in the third and fourth games of this series. They let Dokla get the Jax every single time from game 2 on till game 4. They didn't attempt to pick it away, ban it away, and he just continued to perform super well, pressure objectives, a lot of his stuns and everything with the Jax. I'm the Counter Strike. Yeah, took me a second. I knew it was there, but he just played it out so well. FBI went off like a maniac especially in games 3 and 4, just playing out of his mind. So the NRG squad really turned it up at the end here to go ahead and take the LCS championship, take that first North American Worlds slot. Cloud9 taking the second one as the runner-up, and then the third place Team Liquid taking that third slot for the LCS, who have qualified into Worlds. And just in terms of this is a thing, I don't know if you were aware of this, but did you know about like how the fourth seed from LCS and EU have to play each other for the spot in the playing group this year?
No, that's super exciting though.
Yeah, so
only one team will get a fourth team.
Yes, so China and Korea both get 4 teams as the top 2 regions. Mm-hmm. EU and NA as the third and fourth regions have 3 slots, and then a 4th slot just to make it into the play-in, where previously we had a NA team and an EU team in the playing group last year. They have to go to a Worlds qualifying matchup, best of 5, and play for the last position. So there will be 2 PCS teams, 2 Vietnam teams, Japan, Brazil, Latin America, and then an EU or NA team for that 4th slot. So Golden Guardians is awaiting their opponent, who's yet to be decided from the EU EMEA region.
Let's go. That's really exciting. So there's going to be North America with 3 teams, and then the other 3 regions with 4. That's super exciting.
Exactly. But I don't know, Golden Guardians, we saw them go on quite the tear into MSI and everything, and have
this is true. They performed.
They've thrown some banter out already on the socials in terms of can't wait for play-ins and things like that.
Oh hell yeah, they're confident, the boys.
Oh yeah, just memeing on them already before they even know who they're playing. So the normal North American way, but I thought that was kind of cool. When I saw that, just in terms of looking towards Worlds, it guarantees that a developing or minor region is going to have a slot in the group stage at Worlds. Previously it was hopefully we get to see some good games in the playing group for these other regions before EU and NA qualify up to the main stage. So very exciting to see in terms of that. Detonation Focus Me is the only team that we have solidified for the qualifying or for the playing stage right now, being the champions over in the LJL.
Yeah,
couldn't talk for a second there. So we'll continue to see more of those other teams fill in as we go through. We've talked about the 4 teams for LPL, but we also had some LCK matchups this past week that we wanted to go through during the episode here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is another case of the semifinal matchup being way more exciting than the finals. Oh, yeah. Although, you could look at it from the perspective of, T1 gets another shot against Gen.G, but, man, it does not go well. I think the series that is really worth talking about would be T1 and KT. The rematch there goes to all 5 games, and that was just lights out, just a fun LCK series.
Oh, yeah.
Like all 5 games were awesome. You had like haymaker punches being thrown back and forth late into the series. You have junglers stealing neutral objectives, like true carry performances out of the ADs, like moments where it's like do or die kind of things, where like Gumayusi is able to step up for T1. There were so many good moments from the T1 KT series where it's just like, I was hoping that was the T1 that we would have gotten in, the finals against Gen.G, not to be. But yeah, I thought this semifinal matchup, the lower bracket final between KT and T1 was sick.
Oh, it was phenomenal, and I mean, just even from the picks and bans that we saw, the different like changes and wrinkles that we had through there. Game one with BDD on the Xerath trying to counter the Azir, Lahen's on the Singed. Very interesting pick to go with, and it just didn't pan out in game one, but yeah, the evolution of the drafts and everything throughout the series, particularly with KT kind of trying to go for stronger picks for BDD, I feel like that worked out a lot better for them than some of the more passive. I mean, really, they lost all the games where he was on some of the more passive kind of mid laners, looking at the Xerath, the Annie, and then the Vigar. When he was on the Ari and the Tristana, being in a more high damage game changing position on those champions, he showed up and performed really well. But those other matchups just did not go quite as well for KT Rolster.
Yeah, I think you can kind of say the same for Faker, especially in the Cassiopeia game and the Nico game. I mean, especially in the Nico game, he was doing the most to try and get his teams these engages, get the fights. Like he was continually sacrificing himself to get the engages, looking for aiming just over and over again. And I think traditionally Faker does pretty well to set up his team, but where he's able to sometimes live after the fights, I think is where T1's best. And then the Cassiopeia into double AD, where one of them is specifically Tristana. Like, that pick actually is, in my opinion, fine if you are not up against specifically Tristana. Like, that range is just going to bully the Cassiopeia so hard, and then
and even like the jump that Tristana has, you can buffer through any CC. So the Cassiopeia ult is like for a good League of Legends player just doesn't matter. For me, I could still get hit by that 9 times out of 10 from Faker, but when you're up against BDD, like the timing that they have on all of those things, like you're right, that is a very solid pick on BDD's side.
yeah, so I just think, like, if we're talking about the, like, kind of the mid lane meta of the series, yeah, I think there were a couple of like strange picks on both sides. I one could admit, but yeah, overall it was just super exciting. I love the Aatrox priority for Zeus. When he's been able to play that champ, he does look really good on it. So I think that was huge for them, and the series really starts to heat up in games. Games 3 and 4, where T1 they're up 2-0 in the series, looking super clean, and then KT takes game 3, win game 4, and then it just comes down to execution in Game 5. Like that team comp from T1 with owner on the Nocturne, they had to play those fights out just like so perfectly, turning the lights out to give them like vision priority on neutral objectives, the way they were like trying to take down aiming in the team fights. I mean, it was crazy. These fights were just wild.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that I saw as like pretty impressive from T1 throughout the series. In the at least in the games they won, their vision control was massive, and like their for I believe it was game 2, one of the last team fights is around the Baron, but I don't even think like that they actually fought on the Baron. They just had so much ward coverage in KT Rolster's red side jungle that they were able to get the picks and then just kind of push it through at the end there. And taking the Nocturne in that game 5, like you said, turning the lights out and everything was another component of that vision control that they were trying to have throughout those first couple of games that helped them significantly in game 5 in those team fights, even though it did require them to play it out very, very carefully, because I mean, all it takes is that Nocturne getting far enough behind where he can't do the damage when he ults. All of a sudden you're in 4v5 fights constantly. So a riskier pick, but worked out worked out well for T1 at the end of the day in that game 5.
Ends up using it to get in on the Baron steal that ultimately, nets them the victory in game 5. Just so fucking sick, honestly, just so sick all around. Cuz having a couple
I was gonna say,
a couple smite steals as well.
I thought he stole a Baron and a Dragon, I think, in that game.
Yes. Yeah. Just so many like neutral fight like moments coming down to neutral fight execution, which was just so sick, so exciting. Cario with the 5-game Lulu priority, just nonstop playing the same champion. That's fucking hilarious. I didn't even notice that like when watching it, but
I didn't. Lehen's almost had it. The singed pick in game 1. If he had well, I guess they banned out the Rakan against themselves, but if he had the opportunity, he could have played the Rakan 5 games. So,
dude, speaking of Rakan, I mean, that's got to be perma-banned. If like meta stays the same as it is, Rakan has to be perma-banned against Gen.G. That was the most lethal weapon that they had in that series, Gen.G versus T1 in the finals.
Over there, because in the 2v2, like Guma and Kyria are fine. Like they're not going to lose the 2v2 typically just without any jungle intervention in most cases. But Delight's Rakan like was just unbelievable, and he was able to utilize that both in the early game and later on in team fights and everything to get picks and get advantages, which typically I don't feel like you'd see Guma and Kyria give up. Has to be banned against the Light. He's so comfortable on that pick.
Well, and it gives, me and you were talking about it off air, it just gives Delight so many tools to decide when Gen.G gets to fight. Being that primary engage for the team, I think gives the other players, specifically Peanut, just so much peace of mind, so much freedom in their play when you know that you can rely on this other guy getting the fight that you guys need like 99% of the time, and your ult is only backup. Like there are a lot of team setups where the Sejuani ult is primary engage, but that was like if you watch the way they would layer their CC, Sejuani ult would always come out afterwards. So
Yeah.
there is something to be said about the like communication in that regard, the everybody knowing their roles very well as to like what they are specifically supposed to do in these fights. I think it
Well,
speaks to a level of cohesion for Gen.G that we've just been seeing them kind of level up towards ever since, since like spring split last year.
yeah.
They drop Ruler, bring in Pays. There's so many question marks about this player. Like, oh, Ruler, like literally the GOAT. Like, how's Pays gonna come in? I mean, this guy is just role player, never puts a foot out of like in the wrong place. I mean, this guy is just dominating games alongside of his support, who is just winning games on Ultimate. So
Yeah.
Gen.G is just a treat to watch, even when they're spanking my favorite squad. I mean, you
And
can't fault them at all.
no, and I think like what your point about the Sejuani being kind of the secondary engage is just such a huge thing that would go unnoticed to most people watching. The and like you said, the trust that they have that to put the squishy ass Rakan as your primary engage, to say he's gonna get in there, stop enough people that we'll be able to start the fight, and whether he gets out or not, at that point we've already locked up people, put down damage, and then we can isolate someone, and just like that is such a strong way to just dominate a fight. And so yeah, really really impressive strategy by them that relies on that cohesion and trust of Delight in his play so much. And even in game 2 on the Blitzcrank, like the number of opportunities that he was able to cause disruption and get picks in that game, just made that so smooth for them, really the entire game.
And then in game 2, the other thing I really liked was the shift of priority from Chovy, where like he kind of picks for the team, kind of picks for the lane in the Talia. I really like how they kind of counter the T1 Maokai priority with the Sylas, and literally Sylas just steals Maokai ult every fight and just does it better than the Maokai. There were so many fights for Gen.G that were just won off the back of a Chovy Maokai ult. Just being able to lock up the team. You saw T1 like doing pretty well, especially like between Guma and Zeus, to make sure that Guma was never locked up in that ultimate. But even still, like just the jeopardy that all of the CC Gen.G had in game 2, like it was just way too much in that regard. Chovy being able to steal like this massive team fighting ult. So yeah, man, from in whatever angle you want to chop this series up from, Gen.G was just doing it better. They had better answers. Even in game 3, like T1 drafts the Draven, they look to get an advantage there. Like he is even the point of advantage for them in the game. The thing that they drafted for, still not enough to bring them through. Pays comes out on this like crazy Nyla pick that we haven't seen in God knows how long. So it's just like, okay, so they can just beat you with anything. It doesn't even matter.
Oh yeah, and I mean the Nyla was banned during the T1 KT series as well, so it's I guess it must be coming up here and there in like scrims and whatnot, but.
Gotcha. That's a good read.
I think the looking at the Draven pick, it's just funny to me that was like the we need to turn this around pick for T1, which it was also the same thing for C9 in the LCS. They went for the Draven pick in that game 4, which I just find like it's such a risky pick to go for. And I understand like obviously I understand the concept. I think it makes more sense in T1's case where they're like, wow, we got straight up shit on in game 1 and 2. Not well, kind of shit on. I guess that's not really.
It was pretty stompy.
I'm trying to be nice, but yeah, like got beat bad. Like let's go for the home run swing.
Yeah.
Where I feel like in the LCS, Cloud9 had other ways they could have gone about it, but they opted towards that riskier pick in the series, and it didn't pan out. But I mean, from the Gen.G T1 series, like they specifically focused the Draven too early on. I mean, Draven had like 200 adoration stacks, and then just gets killed and loses all of it, and all of a sudden he's like 1,000 gold down on pays out of nowhere just because he didn't get to cash those in pretty much, and was getting just out farmed by pays on the Nyla. So really a tough spot that they were in. I don't hate the pick, but definitely was kind of that all or nothing shot at the end of that series.
And maybe T1 was like, you know what, we did the hard work beating KT. We locked ourselves into Worlds here. Let's just hit the relax button. But yeah, even Gumayusi, the hero rifle that T1 thought they needed, was not to be. Gen.G ends up winning in 3 games, not what we expected. It went to 5 the last time. We've had 5-game series, I think. Most of the other times that they've met, it was like 3-1s or 3-2s. But yeah, this one a shellacking for T1, unfortunately.
Yeah, but like you said, going on to Worlds, and then so we have Gen.G and T1 as the first and second qualifiers from Korea. Then we will have coming up actually tomorrow, so Thursday when this is out, you'll have the results for the first qualification match for Worlds. So the top 2 teams, I guess, in terms of maybe I think championship points from spring and summer play immediately in a qualification match. So KT Rolster and Hanwha Life will play a best of 5. The loser will go on to play the winner of DRX and D plus Kia for that final spot at Worlds. So we'll end up with KT or Hanwha Life as one of those, and then the other 3 will be duking it out for that last spot.
I'm guessing we're going to see KT and D plus.
I wouldn't be shocked to see that, but at the same time, I'm excited to see. I'd say KT and D plus are the 2 top teams from this last stretch of the season and everything. Hanwha Life, though, did also 3-0 DRX in the playoffs here for the summer split. So maybe they've got a little something in them. They got 3-0'd by Gen.G afterwards. And D plus Kia had T1 as their first matchup. So it's kind of tough to gauge maybe the playoff expectations there. But definitely looking forward to seeing those matchups over the next couple days.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have some at least a couple more exciting games leading up to Worlds, and as we lock in our final teams, which is very exciting.
Yes, and so really the only other teams that or the other like major region that we're waiting on things to be solidified would be over in the EMEA, which I believe are not going to be finished for a little bit. I think it's going to be another week or 2 before that's all wrapped up. So yeah, end of the EMEA season is September 10th, so we're still like 2 weeks out from the end of the LEC or EMEA squads.
Gotcha. So yeah, a couple weeks until we know all of the teams involved, but yeah, it will be an international affair.
Yeah, so ramping up towards that. But any final League of Legends notes?
No, I don't think so. Let me just let's just get these people out of here with the flavor of the week.
Sounds good. So I'll start us off with so Colleen and I had made this lemon butter chicken recipe for one of her family members, like as a meal to give to them and everything, and she was like, she loves lemon. She puts lemon in all of her water. She's like, oh, this meal looks so good. We're giving it away. We're gonna have to make it for ourselves. So we whipped that up this past week, and that was a solid one. It's just this really nice like sauce of lemon butter. I have lemon pepper seasoning that I seasoned the chicken in before I like seared that up in the pan and all. But a nice little dish there. I did some homemade mashed potatoes with it that I whipped up and everything. So nice little meal. For my music, I've just come back across some old favorites of Stormzy and Skepta, some UK grime recently.
Hell yeah.
So just bouncing back into some of their music a little bit, which is always fun. It's like I enjoy mixing up the playlist every now and then, and checking out some of those artists that I haven't listened to in a bit. So it's been fun. And then for my visual medium, Colleen and I have just been diving in on Big Brother that started recently, reality TV, until Survivor's back. But one of the greatest players in Survivor history who has never won the game. She's played Survivor, I think, 4 times and has been like a runner-up multiple times in her experience. Is the first Survivor player to ever cross over into Big Brother. And so Suri is just playing it, crushing it in Big Brother, which is it's funny to like see the comparisons because Survivor is so like kind of gritty, like you're out there with no food, like you're building your shelter. Big Brother, like it's just way more of a social atmosphere. Like you're in this house constantly with these people. Like there's no like taking a walk on the beach to clear your head or anything else. And so watching the like Suri is just a phenomenal like reader of people and kind of like figuring out how to work with people or put herself in the best position. It's kind of cool to see in a primarily social game where the physical aspect is not as like heavy as it is in Survivor.
Right, where like you want to be fit in Survivor.
Yeah, and like just like mentally tough in a different way than you have to be in other like reality games and whatnot. For sure. So that is my flavor of the week. It's been been fun checking that out.
Well, Stormzy and Skepta, yours ties into mine. My visual medium here for the week is Secret Invasion, the Marvel show about Nick Fury and the Skrull that are inhabiting Earth in disguise. They've been here since the beginning of the thing. All very exciting stuff. But there's a scene in it where they're getting in or out of a vehicle, and it's like Stormzy that's playing on the car radio, just like casually. Oh, and nice. I was like, oh damn, like that's sick. Like, and I said to Sarah, I was like, dude, can you imagine like whatever his story is, and then just like being featured in a Marvel film. She's like, damn, that's just sick that like what that music
Well,
is.
that's what
I'm like,
I was gonna say. Like, how often do you see a movie and you're like, they've got some music in the background, and you almost assume it was something that was just created to be in the background of that thing, because you're like, I've never heard this. I don't know what this is, whether it's something old or something from like a different part of the world. So it's
yep.
kind of funny in those moments when you're like, oh wait, did I hear that right? Oh, that is what I thought it was. Like,
Yep.
that's cool.
Piece of trivia: the little gangster film in Home Alone that he plays on the television to like shoo away the robber, where he's like, "Keep the change, you filthy animal." Apparently, they filmed that specifically for Home Alone. That's not like an actual
Oh,
movie
I
that's out
just
in the
assumed
world.
it was. I assumed it was some movie that they just like found clips from, and it was
So did we.
interesting. That's so
Yep. So that
funny.
was just for the film. I digress. But yeah, so Secret Invasion, super cool. My food here for the week, simple. It's a stack week. My favorite time of the year.
Nice.
Love a stack. They are. It's truly the best food. I can't really say anything more about it. And then my music here, I've done this a couple times where I've changed my music to something else that's like equally as interesting. I was gonna have it as my visual medium, but I wanted to talk about Secret Invasion too a little bit because that was kind of cool. So my other thing is another visual medium. I've been reading back through the Sandman graphic novels.
Okay.
I got done like volume one. I'm halfway through volume two. I'm just falling in love over again. I loved it the
Yeah.
first time I read it,
I remember
and
you talking
this,
about it. It was
bro, it's
it.
so good.
You loved it, and so
It's so good.
that's awesome.
So like reading it again, I just recently got to one of the parts that I was like super excited and like telling Sarah about. I'm like, oh, like you meet this character like a couple times, like, oh, it's super cool. We just get to that part now, and I'm just like, there's something very much how I enjoy in hip hop music, like hearing a line that I never heard before, or if I did hear it, I didn't understand what the reference was, but now that I'm older, I know what the reference is, so I'm like, oh shit, like that's what they're talking about, and it hits you
Yep.
like a light bulb. I got to the end of this little section of the story, and the chatter that's going on in the tavern where he meets this other character, where Dream meets this other character, the chatter is exactly the same as it would have been like 500 years prior. The idea is that he's meeting this individual every 100 years at the same tavern. And there's just like little quote bubbles of just like the errant conversation that you hear like in
And
this
so, like, the
tavern.
visual of it changes with the time frame, but then the
Exactly.
conversations are always the same.
Yes,
Oh,
and
that's
I
cool.
never noticed. Well, the first time and the last time specifically, the
Okay.
conversations are the same, but the environment is like totally different. Where like you first meet them, it's like this like old like medieval times like little tavern, and then it's like this posh kind of metropolitan like bar now when they're meeting, but the conversation is the same in the air bubbles. I was just like, oh, it's so good. it's
That's
like
cool.
it's like self-referential, and I'm just like jizzing over this. So yeah, I'm loving it all over again.
Did you watch the show?
I watched episode one and was just kind of like, yeah, this is cool.
I haven't watched it. I just saw, like, I've come across it through, like, surfing Netflix for something to watch or whatever,
Mhm.
wherever it is. So I was just curious because I remembered how much you like it
Yeah.
from the graphic novel, and also I wasn't sure if you had checked that out.
It may be something I supplement with this time, but no, I haven't watched it yet.
Nice.
But yeah, that is my flavor of the week here. Quick and
Very
easy.
cool. So that, of course, wraps us out at the end of the episode here. So, as always, Check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts. Check us out on YouTube if you want the video podcasts and everything. But we just appreciate everyone taking the time to listen with us week to week. And it's always fun putting this together for you guys. So,
yeah, tell your friends. Tell your friends, new episodes every Thursday. We just appreciate you listening. Thank you so much for your time. But yeah, this has been another episode of the Tall and Short of a Podcast. Peace out, everyone.
See ya.